So moving on to keeping you and your money safe, U.S. intelligence leaders are saying that cyber attacks are now our nation's #1 security threat, even more than terrorism and al-Qaeda. Today, the president met with CEOs of some of the biggest companies to discuss the critical implications. But here's the thing. All the recent attacks on banks and websites have seemed more like inconveniences than anything else. Supposedly, no one's bank accounts were compromised, and we've never seen anything like the dire warnings of, water treatment facilities or the like being attacked, despite warnings for years. So why is cybersecurity our biggest concern right now? That's what I'm wondering. Joining me now is Wright, cybersecurity expert, and retired Colonel Cedric Leighton, cybersecurity risk analyst. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thanks for coming on. Morgan, let me start with you.
Sure.
This is supposed to be the biggest threat out there, but as a regular person, I never see any evidence of it, so it's hard for me to get scared.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before. The government has an interest in spreading a certain amount of fear, uncertainty, and doubt to get policies through, to get people to take action. So when James Clapper came out and talked about this, my concern is not what he knows and what he's told us, it's what we don't know, because the actual threats and the actual capabilities, the scope and damage of these threats always lag the indicators and warnings that we get. So there may be something on the rise here, but the real reason it's a big issue, it's because the number of actors, the access to technology, the internet is ubiquitous, rather than having Russia or China where you have a defined army, a defined enemy, and you can see those things. You've got Anonymous, you've got the Al-Quds force we talked about before. You've got all these people out there, China, now, and all their cyber espionage units out there. So the threat proliferates.
Yeah.
It doesn't get smaller.
Colonel, do you believe that this is the biggest threat right now, bigger than al-Qaeda?
Actually, I do. And the reason I believe that, Melissa, is that it is one of the most ubiquitous things that we deal with right now. What we're dealing with is a device and a series of networks that are hooked up to everybody. Every single person in the United States has some interface with the internet. And because of that, it becomes really important for us to secure that network, or there's a series of networks. And that is why, because it touches everybody, everybody needs to know that there are threats out there, and they also need to know how to behave to counter those threats.
But, Morgan, I just don't feel like this ever touches me, and this is always the problem that I have when we're talking about cybersecurity.
Right.
For years, we have been talking about the potential, for terrorists to either get in the electric grid and shut down huge cities, to turn off the subway, to contaminate water supply. You never hear about anything like that happening. They're attacking banks, yet I haven't lost any money. The worst thing that happens is you can't get online and check your balance for a short period of time. It just doesn't seem, like a very terrifying to the average person.
Well, and you know what? And that's the 50,000-foot view. Colonel Leighton from the Air Force would understand this analogy. That's like bombing from 50,000 feet. A lot of people don't see the actual impact, but then you talk to a construction company in California that in December, go visit Krebs Online, a great security blog. They lost $900,000 because somebody compromised their sensitive information and took $900,000 out of their account. So it is, you won't see it on the denial of service attacks, because denial of service attacks are just designed to just prevent access. But Colonel Leighton actually pointed out something. There are more devices connected to the internet than there are people on the face of the earth right now. And with the new addressing scheme for the internet, because you have to have an address to be on the internet, we have 10 order of magnitudes of even more devices. Well, that means more things to compromise, more people's personal information being out there. So I don't want to wait until the mushroom cloud of cyber, terrorism hits.
Yeah.
What you want to do is get ahead of this and put the policies, procedures, and training of your people in place.
So, Colonel Leighton, are we doing that? You see CEOs going to the White House today to talk to the president. In this country, are we ahead of the curve? Are we behind?
We're behind right now, Melissa, and Morgan points out some really good points. He makes some great points when it comes to the types of things that we need to do to prepare ourselves. We don't have laws in place to protect us. We don't have laws that will protect the infrastructure, and that, I think, is what the president is trying to work with the CEOs on, because it becomes very important.
What kind of law would protect us here? What law would make a difference?
Well, I think the big thing is that you have to have minimum cybersecurity standards, and I know the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has a different view on this, but the basic idea is this, is that you have some minimum standards that evolve as technology evolves. That's something that the government hasn't really done yet, but they need to get into the business of developing standards that change with the times, that change with technology, and that can be enforced. You don't want to have onerous burdens on business, but what you want to do is you want to protect everybody from the possible threats that are out there. And in essence, what we're doing is we're protecting the utility that we have that is known as the Internet.
Gentlemen, thanks for coming on. Good
My
stuff.
pleasure.
You bet, Melissa. Thanks again.